Welcome to the ArtPeak show. We are an illustration and animation studio creating art in different styles. We've worked on projects for the BBC, Netflix, and many more. And on this show, we are interviewing people from all walks of life to bring valuable knowledge to artists of all kinds. If you would like to work with us, head over to our website at www.studioartpeak.com and contact us. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the ArtPeak show. Our guest today is Louisa Olafuyi. She is the co founder of Kunda Kids, an award winning children's publishing and media company based in London. They have published popular children's books in 2020, such as Mansa Musa, Queen Yaa, Queen Kitami, and Shaka Zulu. And in 2021, they published the popular children's book series Africa's Little Kings and Queens. Louisa is a former journalist and innovation specialist at Unilever and now focuses on children's book and storytelling space. You can find out more about her and Konda Kids in the link in the description. Enjoy the show!
All right, so thank you so much again, Louisa, for coming on the Art Pick show. I would like to start from the very beginning. The great thing is that this is my actual first time meeting you, so I'm sure our listeners will also benefit from my learning more about you as well. So, can you tell me how you got interested in children's book and the children's book space in general, and how that started for you?
Yeah, so firstly, it's a pleasure to be here. So thank you so much, Lawrence, for having me. I think it's really important to start by saying that I would not be who I am and not have done what I've done in the children's book and storytelling space if not have for me becoming a mum and becoming
Okay.
there are lots of skills and attributes that kind of all made sense and came together wonderfully. But the foundation for the interest, the passion, and the drive to really reimagine storytelling for young people really stemmed from me becoming a mum. So I have a son, he's going to be 4 next month. And we started Kunda Kids in 2020 in the middle of lockdown when there was a lot happening and life changed in all manner of ways that we were completely unexpected. We didn't expect to go through and to experience. But one thing that really stood out to me during that period was just how excluded I felt and my family felt from children's books and content.
Okay.
Going into Waterstones, going into our local library, we were living in Cambridge at the time. I really struggled to find not only children's books that had Black lead or supporting characters, there were some, but I really struggled to find books that celebrated African culture and heritage. And this is really important to me because my son is of mixed heritage, Ugandan and Nigerian, and he was born in the UK. It's really important that he grows up knowing that where he is a beautiful place, where he is from is a beautiful place. And whilst he doesn't live in Uganda or Nigeria, we wanted him to be very connected to his roots because that is a foundational point of connecting with your self-confidence, your self-knowledge, self-awareness. And I think a lot of people that I know and have experienced in my lifetime who don't really know where they're from or are connected to where they're from always have this yearning that either they lean into or they aggressively oppose. And we wanted our son to be very confident about his African heritage. But unfortunately, a lot of content wasn't available. And one thing that I learned, during my time working at Cambridge University Press, which is, we were in Cambridge during that time, and that was where I was working, is learning about children's books and learning that they are the window to children's worlds, how they learn about the world around them, people, what we as a society consider important, unimportant, cool, uncool, good, bad, really starts with storytelling. And because that storytelling was absent about African history and culture, it was clear that children will have that absence in their minds and in their hearts. So my husband and I, we spent too much time together during lockdown, as probably most married couples do. And, we challenged ourselves and thought, well, let's try and create some stories and see how it goes. And that was, the beginning of an amazing journey for us.
Wow. Even though your journey into beginning creating your own stories and eventually publishing came from an inspiration of being a mother and one wanting to invest in your child's mental and psychological upbringing, I think it's still, isn't it a daunting thing to want to just launch into something like children's book illustrations? Like, how were you able to be like, okay, I don't know anything about this subject, but I'm going to do it anyway? Were there any doubts? If there were, can you tell us what those were, and how did you navigate that water to get to where you are now?
Well, there were always doubts, and we all have doubts about every endeavor that we ever try to embark on. But probably worth saying that myself and my husband, Dele, and other co-founder of Kunda Kids, we are marketing people. We come from a marketing background, and marketing people are, at the very modest scale, incredibly ambitious, and sometimes we latch onto big plans and we figure it out as it goes. So life had dealt us a number of instances and opportunities to do amazing and incredible things that were very much outside of the box. So I think that sowed a seed of bravery for us. We had already done a number of things that for us exceeded our expectations. So we were daring to be brave. Sorry, Lawrence, I'm going to just actually turn off my Slack so that I don't get any notifications. I'm really sorry.
No problem. This will be edited.
Yeah, so we were daring to be brave, and I think we saw the opportunity as greater than the cost or any doubts that we had.
Okay.
First and foremost, the way that we approach life, from our individual plans, our plans as a family, a business, parenting, we all know, we know collectively as a household that we need to do our best, and that comes with failures and disappointments along the way. You can't live your life afraid of failure. Like, failure is the greatest thing to step into. And in fact, go through failure first and go through it early. It's quite annoying to actually experience failure very far into a process. So I'm very much of the school of thought of failing first and failing fast. So we just thought, let's give it a go. It might not work, and that's completely okay. And I think that we were quite confident that we were creative and very skilled, that if this doesn't work, something else will work. And that's how life goes. We definitely live in the opportunity lane as opposed to the fear lane.
Wow, there's so much you said in there that I'd like to talk about. First of all, you said that you and your husband come from a marketing background. Okay, what's the role in marketing in terms of coming up with a children's book idea and then approaching marketing? Like, how did you picture, okay, we are going to get to this point where we need to market. How are we going to get about doing that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Bear in mind also that the people listening here, they have no idea. Let's just imagine that they don't have any idea about marketing. Okay, so if you use lingo that is beginner friendly, tell us.
No, I'll keep it very simple. I'm a very simple person. So Firstly, just to say that my husband and I, though we work in marketing, we work in two very different areas of marketing, which come together quite well. His area of marketing is very much about business strategy, marketing sales. He's a very quantitative person. He's wonderful at numbers, creative in his own way, but I'm not sure he's going to put creative on his CV. My experience, on the other hand, is very creative. I come from a graphic design background. I've spent a lot of time on projects around design thinking, consumer insight, customer research. I really get people. I get what drives them from an emotional level, and I'm very qualitative. So, excuse me. So yeah, I'm very qualitative. So that came together quite well. Very different areas of marketing, but I think combined really at least create the majority of the marketing skills that you need to have. What was helpful was when during lockdown, Lawrence, this was in 2020, a lot was going on for us as a family, but also in terms of what was happening worldwide. This was very much in the height of the very unfortunate and unpleasant death of George Floyd. And during that time, there were protests, around it that I was part of, and other also protests, around. I can't remember exactly what it was at the moment, but Dele had been involved in a number of other protests that were more related to things that were happening on the African continent. So we had this pain that we were dealing with in terms of feeling annoyed and frustrated that as Black and African people in this space, this is what we're going through. And I think that there was an energy that we needed to put somewhere. Going to the protests, supporting these movements it just got to a point where it didn't feel enough. And we also felt that our generation, not that we're getting old, but what are we doing for the next generation? Only so much can be done for us. What can we pass on? And when we were talking about African history together as a family, and he was asking, who do you know from African history? Name a notable person from Ugandan history. And I felt really embarrassed that I didn't know. I come from an incredible lineage of people, but I didn't know enough about Ugandan history to know this was an amazing king or queen. This is who they were. This is what they did. So we started talking about African kings and queens. And that was the start of Africa's Little Kings and Queens, our award-winning children's book title. But aside from that, the conversation we had internally was, I think I can sell 100 of these books. And then Dele was like, I think I can sell 200. If we wrote a story about Africa's Little Kings and Queens that was fun, cool, dynamic, I think I could find you 200 people to sell it to. And then we're like, do you think combined we could sell it to 1,000 people? And we're like, yes. And I think that was just the marketing brain. We have a great idea. Do we think that we have what it takes to create a convincing story to people? And the fact that we could sell it to 1,000 people just off our contacts and our network told us that we're onto something.
Wow.
And I think that was how our marketing experience combined really came together in a nice way. So we started with a whole bunch of different illustrations. We asked kids about it. We asked parents. We asked teachers. This is very much in the fun, creative ideation stage. And then I think just what we knew from experience and working in marketing helped us know that, okay, not only is this a lovely thing to have, there's commercial viability here.
Wow. If you were to sum up the key marketing skills that one needs to have, say, if I wanted to go away and research key marketing skills that I must have to have something that is going to be not only financially successful, but more purposefully successful, if you get what I mean. Like, the book is achieving what it was created for, not just the monetary aspect of it. So what would what would those skills be?
Sure. So one, do people need it?
Okay.
Consumer insight is my starting place for anything, for almost everything that I do. Do people need it? You can have something nice, but Lawrence, it has to meet your need, either a practical need that you have or an emotional need that you have. Is it filling a gap that you have? That's my first starting point. The second starting point is, can you afford it? Lawrence, I could present to you the most wonderful array, displayment of things, but if it is out of your reach, it is pointless.
Mm.
And then the third is, which is very much more attached to our purpose as a company, is it making a positive difference?
Right.
Having something that is, something that people need, something that they can afford, is not a difficult thing to do. I could very much easily get into the business of repurposing animal manure. It's a big industry. Don't ask me how I know that. But my point is that is it driving a purpose that's important to you, and what you think is important to other people? So that's, I think, 3 fundamental questions that are a great starting point, and were our starting point, at least, for doing what we're doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Okay, we're going to switch gears now and talk more about the creative aspect of publishing and creating stories and books in general. So what was the first book that you and your husband wrote in terms of launching Kunda Kids?
Okay, so firstly, we started with 4 books simultaneously. I'd like to think that we started with 1, but we didn't. We kind of just seemed to have this nature of going hard or going home. So we started with 4 books, and these were Mansa Musa Builds a School, which has been acclaimed as one of the top 10 children's books with diverse characters by The Independent 2 years in a row. Just put it out there. It is a beautiful book. And I love it to bits, and my son loves it to bits, and his friends love it. Then there's Shaka Zulu Learns to Dance, which is a wonderful reimagination of Shaka Zulu as a historical figure that brings in everything, not everything, brings in some really wonderful parts of South African culture. I wish I could have included everything I love about South African culture, but I could only include a few. But a lot of that is about music, dance, creativity, hospitality, and just great vibes. And then the third is Queen Katami Makes Friends, because friendship and social development is such an important part of the experience of young people. And it was really nice to have a book that touched on that. Also, just as a side note, my son is neurodiverse. He's on the autism spectrum. And at the time when I wrote this book, I didn't know that. But I wrote it very much inspired by just his interactions with other children. And this was a character that just had their own way of doing things and really struggled to connect with other children that just seemed to like things in a different way, and about how to overcome that, some fundamental skills and kind of emotional and social attributes to have when trying to make friends. And that, friendship can only consist of an eclectic dynamic of people coming together with a single aim, which is to love everybody for their individuality. So it's really nice to write that book. And it's only now that I reflect and I think about how proud I am that I wrote that book, not with my son in mind, but very much picking up on so many cues that I was seeing about forming friendships as a young person. Bearing in mind, forming friendships even as an adult is tricky. So I think that even adults can gain something from that book, so they should buy it. And then the last one was Queen Ya Saves the Golden Stool, which is a wonderful book about bravery and the importance of preserving your culture and sticking up for who you are. So those are the 4 books that we started with. And we intentionally didn't start with a book with a Nigerian person from history. because from a lot of the market research that we did, it felt very clear that because of Nigeria's influence on global popular culture as far as Africa is concerned, a lot of people, even outside of Africa and in the diaspora, assign Africa to what they see about Nigeria, from music to fashion, which is beautiful, right? But we wanted to now start adding some diversity about Africa. What do we know about Uganda? And eventually we will think, what do we know about Botswana and their history? What do we know about places that weren't so dominant, so that we can create a little bit of diversity around the African narrative? So that was the inspiration for our first 4 books. That started as 4 books. Now we have 7 books in Africa's Little Kings and Queens. We have 2 Nigerian stories, Queen Moremi, Makes a Promise, which is about friendship and sharing, Queen Amina and the Zazal Games, which is about gender inclusion and equality. And I'm missing one. King Albury Cooks the Best Jollof, which is based on Senegalese king called King Albury, who was the last king of the Kingdom of Jollof. A lot of people don't know that jollof rice originates from Senegal. So it's a little bit of an ode to that, and just about the Jollof Kingdom, which is where the word jollof actually originates, who he was, and just
really
the cool guy. Yeah.
Wow. I'm so, you know what? A friend of mine, I grew up in Nigeria. I'm Nigerian. And a friend of mine, prior to coming to the UK, I thought jollof was a Nigerian thing. Like, when I started hearing that other countries, other African countries cook jollof, I was like, what do you mean other countries cook jollof? It was so strange. But okay, so jollof originated from Senegal. That
Indeed.
is interesting.
And likewise, how children will know about Queen Elizabeth. They will know about Napoleon, Henry VIII. It's the same way that they can know about Mansa Musa, Shaka Zulu, King Albury, and not just children who are Black and or of African origin, all children. I absolutely love that my son's nursery reads our stories regularly, and his friends know that Ire is African, and they can at least name one thing attached to being African. I mean, he's 4 years old. I don't have a lot of high expectations, but the fact that they can name something is wonderful. It creates a connection for him. It creates a mutual respect in terms of our culture. Not that where I am from is great and where you are from is less significant from where I am from, right? We're trying to even the balance, and that really comes from the power of history. And I think we underestimate the power of history for young people and the tone that it sets in terms of how we view ourselves and how we view other people.
How important, if you could expand a little bit more on the power of history, like how important is it to the development of a child?
It's incredibly important. I can't remember who said this, and I don't want to suggest and say the wrong thing. But there's a quote that says, you can only know where you're going if you know where you're from. Lawrence, I was very lucky and privileged to grow up in the UK. I was born in Uganda. I came to the UK when I was about 2 years old. So I've lived in the UK most of my life. Very evident in my accent and my sense of humor and a lot of other things. However, I had the privilege of going to Uganda really often. Every year without fail until I was probably about 18, and then started going every 2 or 3 years. I never doubted where I was from. I always knew that, you know, my grandparents sat me down on several occasions to show me my family tree. However, I saw from experiences of my peers, especially growing up, that there wasn't kind of that deep rooted self-confidence in a number of people from Black, African, and Caribbean backgrounds, because they hadn't been to where they were from. They were attaching their heritage to how the UK represented where they are from. And sometimes it created a conflict. It really did create a conflict, and it didn't create, I think, a good headspace for a lot of people. And I think it's really difficult to be in a place like the UK, and to be within the diaspora, I can imagine, and know that I'm here, but I'm not really from here. When people look at me, they're like, where are you from? But then I'm not connected to where I'm from. You know, just as a side note, for several years, I ran a blog called Afro Blush, which was about the intersection between African heritage and being on the diaspora, because I was never British here, I was African. But then when I go to Uganda, I'm also not really African either. I'm not Ugandan either. I can't speak the language with fluency. I'm disconnected to the coming of age experiences that a lot of my family members are. So it created like a bit of a nowhere bubble for me culturally. So, you know, I wrote a lot about that. And I'll be really happy if our books, our animations, and our content give young people somewhere to go that feels connected to home and doesn't make them feel like they have to be this or that. They can be themselves, tap into their heritage and their history when they want, embrace wherever they're at when they want, have something to share with their friends, regardless of where their friends are from, and have a really wholesome experience that is not bound to such adverse, like either you're here or you're there. And I think that sometimes that's what discrimination does. It's about placing us in two separate camps. And at Kunda Kids, we kind of just want to bring it all together, embrace everybody wherever you're from and whatever your experiences are.
That's awesome. I've found that extremes of anything is usually, generally speaking, not a good idea. A balance is always good.
Always, yeah.
Yeah. I see your background is some illustrations, I'm presuming, from some of your projects.
Yes, indeed. Yes, absolutely. So this illustration behind me is part of our newest, latest book that I'm so excited about, which is called A is for Africa.
A is for Africa.
A is for Africa. And this book stems from my frustration buying ABC books, and A always starts with Apple. Like, can we just realize that Apple is not does not have a monopoly on the letter?
Monopoly.
So I was talking with Dele, and we were like, you know what, A should stand for Africa. And we're like, that's a wonderful idea. And if anybody's going to produce an awesome A is for Africa book, it has to be for Kunda Kids. So this is X is for xylophone.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if you can see, but we use a lot of visual references from different xylophones that are used across the African continent. And I absolutely love and adore this book. It's so beautiful. It's like nothing that I've ever seen. I don't know how much time you spend on fashion blogs on Instagram, but I probably do spend a little bit more time than I should. And I find that like fashion and interior design blogs usually have these books on their table, like Tom Ford or Vogue, just as centerpieces, right? Just as, you know, this is a, it's not a book that I'm reading, it's a representation of my values, right? And how I've decided to do up my beautiful New York apartment or whatever it is. And we wanted A is for Africa to be a fun book that takes young people on a journey through Africa, but we also wanted it to be a cult classic of this generation, about reimagining the quality of African storytelling for children, but also for adults, to be a book that one is proud to have and proud to display. My plans for this book, though I think I'm probably only like verbalizing this out exclusively on the podcast, but I'd really love to do an art exhibition of all the artwork that has been curated into this book, because it's absolutely stunning. So this is X is of a xylophone, just one of the background images. But A is for Africa really is, I know obviously it's very biased or whatever, but honestly, it is the most beautiful African ABC book I have come across, and I'm open to anybody challenging me on something better. But until then, this is it. Yes.
That is awesome. How do you find your illustrators? Or is it just one illustrator you use?
So our creative team is the largest department that we have at Kunda Kids, actually, because we are a creative business. Our creative team is headed by Chike Obasi. He's our creative director. He's very much at the heart of everything that we produce. We have two graphic designers, and then we have two graphic designers. I should name them by name. Ike, Kazito. Then we have our illustrators, Francis, Emmanuel, soon Sharon as well. And we have such a fantastic creative team. Not currently on the team, but two people I'd really love to give a shout out to is Tiolu, who worked with us for our existing titles, and Isabel as well, who worked with us on Africa's Little Kings and Queens. Together, we've been able to have the beautiful artwork that we've done, and that very much has been because we had people that really saw our vision. It wasn't just about skills and expertise and experience. It was really about having a heart for what we're doing. And we work at quite a fast pace, and usually are working on multiple projects at the same time. But without our creatives that we are completely in love with and really in love with our vision and what we're doing, we wouldn't be who we are. Recently on like a private event that we had for our investors and our partners, I showed some of our early illustrations from 2020. I'm not ashamed of them, but the difference between what we were producing in 2020 and what we are producing now, it has taken creative companies such as Disney, Pixar, even in-house production from YouTube and Amazon, almost a decade to achieve the level of growth, the level of maturity, and the precision that we've been able to create in 2 years. So I'm extremely proud. All of our creative team are of Nigerian origin. All of our creative team are based in Nigeria. So we're a global business. We started in lockdown, which meant we had no choice but to get worldwide talent, because it didn't make sense having a central office. And we've kind of just developed with the post-pandemic attitude, and very much just interested in having global talent wherever you are from. And we are actually off to Nigeria on Friday to spend some time with the team, and yeah, really connect with them and have some great conversations about what's next. So in terms of our talent and our creative talent, shout out to Nigeria. All of our creatives are of Nigerian origin. Our animation studio is based in Uganda, and the animators working on our animations are Ugandan. So I really love that we have a very Pan-African approach. The illustrator that doesn't work full-time at Kunda Kids but works very closely with us for A is for Africa is based in Ghana. And then we also have team members in South Africa, and people that we work with in Kenya. So I really love that we're a diverse Pan-African team. I don't know how we're physically going to get people together. Maybe it's not necessary in 2023 and beyond, but we're a very open-minded business and willing to adapt to what the needs are based on where we are in life, not trying to assign things just because that's what we used to.
Yeah, that's awesome. So a final closing question then. What's next for Kunda Kids?
What's next for Kunda Kids? It's a great day to ask me that. So I've been working all day on a deck which is highlighting what's next for Kunda Kids. So it's all fresh in my mind. So the first thing I'm really excited to tell you, Lawrence, and I haven't told anybody else publicly, we have a Kunda Kids app that is already in the market. That app is free for anybody to download on the Apple App Store and on Google Play Store, Apple iOS, Google Play Store. And there's lots of beautiful stories, animations. If you have young people that you want to inspire them to learn about African languages, the Kunda Kids app is a great place to be. We are refreshing that app, and it's going to include so much more wonderful stuff, from tracking your progress and what you're reading, improved user experience and user interface. So we're really excited about launching the Kunda Kids app 2.0. It's also going to be an app that parents and educators can enjoy on their desktop as well as on their mobile. This year we are launching a brand new animation. I can't tell you what it's called, but it is a beautiful animation, and we are going to be taking up space in the animation industry. We've had such wonderful feedback from broadcasters, and we are going to expect that it's going to be hitting everyone's homes. So that's really exciting. We also have lots of new print titles. So we just launched A is for Africa. And then we have another beautiful story set for April. I don't think I can tell you what it's called or what it's about at the moment.
Sure.
Lots more print stories available. Another thing I just wanted to add was, I found that when we started, we were like, oh, here are our books, buy our books. And then last year we did something different. We started having events, and we had a Confidence Kids event, because building confidence and self-love is really important to me and really important to what we do in our children's books. So we had an event around it, read some children's books. We had a children's psychologist come and speak to young people about what confidence is, why it's important, how to cultivate it, what it means. Confidence isn't somebody else telling you, oh, you look amazing. It's about how you feel about yourself. And during that workshop, young people said a whole bunch of things that really blew my mind. I love spending time with young people. I think they're the best. If there's a dinner party and there's kids, I'm going to excuse myself from the adults table and upstairs we're creating dens. We are, wizards and unicorns. That's me. I have no interest in adult time. I spend more than enough time with adults. I love spending time with kids. So, but I was saying that to say that the young people in this confidence workshop said things that really touched me, and they were like, okay, what do I do when I feel worthless? Or I failed my maths exam and now I'm not sure that I can do anything. Or sometimes I don't know if people love me, or they're just saying that they like me. How do you know if you're really loved? Really deep questions. And when we think about it, and I don't know what your personal experiences have been about building self-confidence, Lawrence, but so much of the issues and the triumphs even that we have around self-confidence, they really do stem from childhood, which is why, if anybody that's been to therapy, one of the key questions is, let's go back to when you were a child.
Yeah.
So we really wanted to intervene and be a safe space for building self-confidence in kids. And we had the pleasure of being able to collaborate with PwC in the UK for driving that experience. And it's meant so much to me, and something I'm really passionate about doing more of. And I realized that our products are great, but our experiences are everything. When Kunda Kids, when we as a company come together to create an experience, it's 10 out of 10. Everybody has a good time. We have a good time. The moms are crying. The aunties are crying. Kids are having fun. Like, we smash it in terms of creating an experience. So a lot of what 2023 is going to be led by is us building amazing experiences for people, for kids, for parents, for teachers, and just for people that want to come along and connect with their childhood version of themselves. Absolutely, absolutely good. Everybody's welcome. So I'm going to be focusing very heavily on that, because I just realized it's something that we do really well, and something that we really understand. And I'm really privileged to be able to do that, and really privileged to be able to have the ability to connect with young people, and to be able to develop that on scale. So we'll be working on that, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how that plays out for this year.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Louisa, for coming on to this ArtPeak show. You've given us a lot of things that we can actually implement in our own journeys as authors, illustrators, and self-publishers as well. So thank you so much for your time.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me. I could have talked for days, and I'm really grateful that my son has not come up. That is a miracle in itself. Come and sabotage this whole conversation. So I think, good vibes, we had good energy, and we've been blessed by having an uninterrupted conversation. So thank you, Lawrence.
Thank you.